Hello, everybody, and welcome to Soundfair's third Yarn Night. We're very excited to have you here with us tonight in our Answering the Call of Country session. I'd like to start the night by granting the floor to Shirley, who will do an acknowledgement of country for us.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I would like to start the Soundfair tonight by acknowledging all the traditional custodians on the many lands across which we meet tonight. I'd especially like to pay my respects to the Wiradjuri people, which is my home nation, and also the people of the Woronora Nation, which is the land on which I meet with you from tonight. I would like to pay my respects to all elders, past, present, and emerging, and also like to pay my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples that are attending this event this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shirley. That was wonderful. So everybody, welcome. For those of you that haven't been with us before, I'll tell you a bit about Soundfair. So Soundfair is a not-for-profit committed to achieving hearing equality. We've been working for more than 85 years to eliminate the social, emotional, and psychological negative impacts of living with a hearing condition. And today we're proud to continue this work by engaging with people from the hard of hearing and deaf communities to deliver innovative experiences and serve a community to be a catalyst for change. One of the ways in which we try to achieve this is by sharing stories of lived experience, with which Yarn Night is a great example of an initiative in that sense. We believe that every change should be informed by the stories and the needs and the experiences of people with hearing conditions and from the deaf community. So that's why we believe hearing the stories is incredibly important. Yarn Night is a monthly event that happens over Zoom in the first Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. It lasts for an hour and a half, and it basically gives the floor to 4 people from the hard of hearing and deaf community under a particular theme. As you can see, in terms of accessibility, we've got Aslan interpretation and live captioning available. If for some reason you're not seeing the live captions tonight, I'm copying up an URL in the chat right now with which you will be able to access them. If you are having any tech problems, please let us know. My colleague Lisa Westhaven is here today, and she'll be able to help you and assist you with any tech issues that you may have. Without further ado, I'm going to let you know how the rundown for today is gonna go. So we've got 4 storytellers tonight from the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander and First Nations communities, and they'll be sharing their stories with us. So the way the night is going to go is each of them is going to have 10 minutes to speak. I'm going to be introducing each of them before they share their story with us. And then after we've heard the 4 stories, we're going to have a 10-minute break for us to be able to come up with questions so that we're going to engage in a conversation as a group afterwards. The event should be done around 8:30 p.m. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the first speaker for the night, Ms. Jody Barney. So give me 1 second. I'm just pulling up her bio. Jody is a dedicated cultural disability trainer and advocate for over 30 years. She has developed a very strong relationship with many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living with a disability. Jody brings a wealth of knowledge to the various service sectors. Her representations on many boards has provided her with excellent representative and governance skills. Jody's interests are within the disability, LGBTQIA, women, children, justice, education, health and leadership, and development sectors. Her work has extended not only local and state, but nationally and international programs. Her philanthropy work in building communication for deaf and nonverbal community members is well known and respected. Jody is also a senior fellow with Atlantic Fellows Social Equity Australia and is the first deaf Aboriginal woman senior fellow in Australia and globally. Her work continues to strive for social equity for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to be included in their communities. Jody, I give you the floor tonight.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of where I'm currently in Shepparton, in Victoria. I'm on Yorta country. I'd like to pay my respects to elders, past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge you all, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are watching this evening. The theme tonight is what calls us and how to answer that call to country. How does that happen? I'd like to start explaining who I am and what I do. What you've already said in the introduction made me sound so awesome. I don't think I need to repeat myself. So, I guess, how do I answer that call to country and what it means for me is working in this area with deaf and hard of First Nations people or mob with disabilities it's quite complex, this space, and quite unique. The work that I do in my professional work, my philanthropy and advocacy work can vary. And that makes it difficult to answer what the call to country is for me. My work involves being invited onto country by various people all over the nation. And often the work's really complex. And the work that I do, I need to be very respectful of a long list of cultural protocols. The cultural protocols and cultural practice for me is language and communication. It's vital. It's a key component to how we converse and respect language on country. Let me give you an example as to what I mean. If you can envisage my work in this space being the answer to the call to country and what that means, I was asked many years ago to work with a person who was on remand. I was asked because the communication had broken down for this deaf person. This person had been on remand for a long time. He was worried about family. His family were worried that he was going to be there indefinitely. And he was often left there and totally neglected. When I arrived to work with him, I thought there was something that just didn't gel. There was a difficulty there, and I thought to myself, what is that? In a cultural context, you need to go to support a person to ensure that there's that safety net. Who the spokesperson is that speaks for them in their family. So I went to his community on country, sat down and listened to the senior men and women of that community who asked me a lot of questions. And we tried to work out what the communication breakdown was through the court process and the remand process. Cultural protocols say that you need to speak to senior women first. They were not happy with me working with him because he was a male, and I was fine with that. If there was a male that could work in the space, I would definitely support a male deaf or hard of hearing person to do that in terms of helping and translating information. The senior men, including this man's father, were willing because they knew that I was the right person. that would follow the cultural protocols, even though I was female. So when I worked in this space, I listened to people on country. I looked at the environment he was in visually and getting information from a whole number of people there. And then I went to work with this man in the legal setting with his legal issues, in the justice system, and I also worked with the security guards. I worked with his barrister, lawyers, the judge themselves, just to make sure that they were aware of the communication needs, because we had a person here using an Aboriginal Sign Language system, not Auslan. I had to try and bridge that language gap from the Western law system to the cultural law and practice, and how to bridge those things using spoken language interpreters from the community and from the family, because I needed to understand that family and that gentleman's case. If we use the Western system, we needed to make sure that the understanding was there of how the Western system, legal system, worked to ensure that this person was not locked up forever. At the time, I didn't want to sit on country in the bush and do this work. It wasn't proper. So I had to go out to the senior men and women and talk to them and explain why the Western legal system was not the same as a bush court. Because access to language in this case, we needed to ensure that we facilitated both languages and cultures in the most appropriate way. And this case took a long time, but the outcome of it all was the appreciation of language, culture, cultural knowledge, and what it meant for a deaf or hard of hearing person and their family. So to be able to understand language, culture, cultural law and protocols, and the justice system took a lot of communication that sometimes went way over people's heads. So the call to country is also about what happens after the job, after the court case is done and after the person is either released, whether they continue to stay in jail, what happens to their life? Do they go back on country? I was very fortunate to let you know that this gentleman was able to go back onto country. He's currently on country, living with his family, and he's leading his hard of hearing nephew, teaching him cultural law and practices, and raising him even though he's deaf and hard of hearing himself. So he's been able to take on that knowledge and pass it down the generation to the next generation. So the call to country, what it means for me is cultural responsibility done in a safe way, and how communication often, how communication is important. I often don't have interpreters with me. I can use pen and paper. I can use visual gestures. I can use Aboriginal Sign Language. I can get family members to help me in that process of communication. I'm very fortunate. I'm almost finished. My cultural obligation is to make sure that access is there for people on country, those that are deaf and hard of hearing that have no language, that may have no Auslan, may have no spoken language, but have access to their preferred way of communicating. My philanthropy work and advocacy work continues. In my role when I'm on country, I try to spread awareness from the things that I know about country so that I can share the knowledge and thoughts I have. So I thank the interpreters for tonight for keeping up with me. And I thank you all for your time in listening to why I'm answering the call to country. I think it's an important, vital role that I have as an Indigenous deaf woman.
Thank you very much, Jody. That was wonderful. It was really beautiful to listen to your story. And I think you raised very important topics in the sense of, like one of the things that stuck with me was the concept of cultural safety and how we can't really, I don't know if blossom is a word, but we can't really express ourselves and connect to others if we don't feel safe in this environment. And communication is a huge part of that. I mean, probably 80% or more of disagreements or conflict happens because of miscommunication. So highlighting the importance of having clarity and bridges that can make sure that we're communicating with the other person is absolutely crucial. Thank you for reminding us of that. Next up, I'd like to welcome Anne-Marie Banfield. Anne-Marie is a National Manager of Engagement and Awareness HAPPY program in Hearing Australia. As a qualified Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health practitioner, she has worked in many different fields, including Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander eye and ear health, education, and training. She's a mother of 10 children aged 19 to 33 and 5 beautiful grandchildren. All of her children have experienced and lived with significant ear disease, and her daughter is deaf in her left ear. Today, Anne-Marie is going to share her daughter's journey through school and earlier motherhood and how living with a hearing loss has impacted on her life and ability to be interactive with her mob and community. Welcome, Anne.
Oh, thank you. I also just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on today and to pay my respects to my elders past, present and emerging, and all First Nations people that are here with us tonight. I wanted to talk today a little bit about the importance of connecting to culture and country, and particularly for people with a hearing impairment, but also in the middle of the pandemic that we're in at the moment, and the importance of being able to hear, you know, our storylines as well as our song lines, both physically and from a cultural perspective. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, and I am going to talk about my daughter a lot tonight. Her name's Eden, and she's profoundly deaf in her left ear. Eden has chosen to not have a hearing aid fitted to increase her hearing. And some of that's got to do with how young she is. But for Eden, the importance of being able to be heard and understood by the mob and the community that we live in is really important, because we're not on country. We are river people from South Australia, and we've been living in Victoria for a long time. We've being off country and being away from her homeland, and also having a hearing impairment has a huge impact on her ability to connect with her mob and the community that we're in with, but also with her family. And, you know, I can't highlight enough that in the times that we're in today, the importance of being able to communicate and express yourself and to be able to talk and to be heard, and have people understand what you're saying and what your story is, and how particularly hard it has been since Eden's become a mum herself. and being able to share her story with her son, and also being able to share her cultural history and her connection. And in these particular times where she can't get home and can't sit on country and can't sit with family or mob, or people that know and understand her, has been particularly challenging for her and her sense of connectiveness, and her sense of connectiveness, not just to country, but also the start of her own family and her extended family. And so being able to express herself in different forms through written word and art and story writing has become really, really important for Eden, to be able to tell her story and to be able to tell her story to her son and to be able to involve her son in the process of being able to connect into, you know, his history and his family, and just who he is as a First Nations person, even though he's only 4. Sorry, I feel like I'm speaking way too fast. I can't express enough for anyone who's part of our mob the importance of us connecting and sharing that experience, and, you know, the need to be able to, you know, hear and share our stories on a whole heap of different levels, and to be able to do it in a whole heap of different mediums, including through written word and drawing, as well as through being able to verbally express ourselves and to be understood. Because for us as First Nations people, being heard and being able to express ourselves is vitally important. We tell our stories through creative means, and our connection to where we come from is fundamental to who we are as people. And in these times when we can't get home and be able to just sit on country, it's even more important that we have a way to connect and to share, and to share that experience of not only who we are and where we've come from, but also where we're going. It's part of the soul and the heart of who we are as people, and it connects us into a wider group of people, and our family lines stretch further than just you know, our mums or dads or aunts or uncles. It's what connects us as a whole, as a community, and why we're very transient quite often as mobs. Those connections are really important to our whole entire community, and particularly in these times, to be connected and to belong somewhere is very important.
Thank you very much, Anne. That was fantastic. One of the things that I take from your story is the importance of having diverse means of communication and diverse channels to engage with. So like you were saying, like having written communication formats and arts and drawing and being able to connect, and going back to what Jody was saying, like the importance of language and of cultural safety, but like exploring all these different avenues, it provides us with a richness and a multiplicity of voices and of speaking that not only allow us to be heard, but that also kind of enrich our experience, because we're essentially, like, each medium provides you with a different thing and different depths. So it's almost like a symphony in a way.
Yeah, 100%. There's lots of ways to be able to tell your story and to stay connected, and just being able to have people hear it in different forms and accept it for what it is really important.
Absolutely. I think this year has been crucial for the broader society in the sense that we've suddenly transitioned to online spaces such as this one, and we just realized, like, we can still come together even within the four walls of our own homes, and we can still create community in different ways. And I'm hoping that that will open up people's minds and hearts to exploring other ways of communicating as well. That's fascinating. Thank you. Next up, I would like to welcome Shirley McManus. Shirley is a Community Engagement Officer for New South Wales for the Happy Program 2 with Hearing Australia. Over her career with Hearing Australia, she has been lucky enough to grow from working as a clinical assistant to a community hearing advisor before becoming a Happy Engagement Officer. She is currently working on building otitis media awareness and prevention in communities, building capacity in health services, as well as conducting hearing assessments on her children. On the children, sorry, not her children. Throughout her growth in her career, she has learned many things about her culture and has also seen the many ways that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are affected by the things throughout many stages in life. She is hoping that Happy will give her a chance to make a huge difference in a lot of the mob's lives across Australia. Welcome, Shirley.
Thank you, Lou. And again, good evening, everybody. So my answering the call to country started long before I even knew what it was that was happening. So I grew up in Sydney, and while I knew that I had Aboriginal relatives, I didn't know myself that I was a First Nations person. As I grew, I started doing the family tree, asking questions, and that's when the truth started coming out. But I've always felt more calm, more balanced, barefoot in the dirt, in the water, out bush, on the coast, just in nature. I've always spoken to the moon. I've always looked at the stars. I talk to the plants and the animals. That nurturing side has always been there. But as I grew up, I just thought that's because that's who I was. I didn't know it's because of what my background was. When I moved into this role in Hearing Australia, I began to actually learn about my culture. And while I'm a bit ashamed that it's taking me so long to learn about it, what I'm learning is amazing. So that being barefoot and that talking to the moon and the stars, the love of the ocean, the love of the bush, and the way I am with our animals and plants, it all comes down to the culture and how we care for our earth and our planet. So I'm learning that about myself. But I believe what I'm doing now for work is answering the call. When I was spoken to about the job opportunity with the Happy program, my first thought was, great, I'll get to travel a little bit, I'll get to help some people in community, you know, it'll be awesome. But when I was sitting in the waiting room waiting for my job interview for this role, there was a video playing in the reception, and the video was catching dragonflies. And I watched that video maybe 3 or 4 times while I was waiting to go in for my interview. And through that video, I learnt that 85% of Aboriginals in Australian prisons have a permanent hearing loss. And as I watched the video, I learnt that this hearing loss can start while these kids are young. It can start from undetected otitis media. It can lead to the children not learning properly because the teachers put the children down to being ignorant and naughty, because the teachers don't understand. And because the children were Aboriginal, they were stereotyped as being naughty kids, which was wrong. This program is giving us the ability to get into these schools and see these kids while they're young. And I believe that me working in this role is answering that call. We're getting out there into community. I'm getting my bare feet on the ground in many, many different lands across this country. We are talking to health workers and Aboriginal health practitioners. We are talking to GPs, and we're talking to parents and early educators and carers. And we're talking to all these people about otitis media, and that it's okay if something's not right with your child to go and get help. And we're able to provide that help to people in community. So what we're doing in the Happy program is answering a call. We're going to be able to help these kids hear better. And if they can hear better, then they learn better. If our kids learn better, they have a better chance at employment. And if they've got a better chance at employment, we just might be able to keep them out of the the justice system. So we're starting at the beginning. We're starting while the kids are young, and it's amazing. And as corny as it might sound, the change that needs to happen in our culture is starting. When we're out in community, you can feel it. It's not written anywhere, it's not spoken anywhere, but you can feel the changes coming. Our peoples are becoming more, sorry, my puppy dog wants a pat at the moment. I'm glad it's a casual meeting. Our people are becoming more educated and more aware, and we're learning that it's okay to speak up if something's not right, that you're not going to get in trouble, and that there are people there to help you. And that is such important to know for community, because if they're not comfortable speaking up, then we can't make that change. So the change is starting, people are speaking up, and our kids are going to be given a better chance than what their parents had and what their grandparents had. There's been a lot of injustices happen to our people across time, but we can make a change to that now. And that's what we're doing by helping these kids here. And if the kids can hear, they get confidence to speak up, to learn, to ask questions, to grow. And that's what we want. And to me, that's me answering the call to country. It's getting out there and helping make that difference to all the communities that we can get to. I know I haven't used my 10 minutes up quite, Lou, I'm sorry, but yeah, that's what I wanted to say to everyone this evening.
That's totally okay, Shirley. Thank you so much for sharing. And like, there's no minimum time limit or anything. So however short it takes, not longer than 10 minutes. But yeah, thank you so much. Okay. I think one of the things that really struck me from your story is I was being transported when you were talking about being in the sea and being in nature. And I was just like remembering, I love the ocean. So like remembering whenever I've been swimming in the ocean and how mindful an exercise it is when you're out in the bush and you're just there in that moment, feeling the earth, touching the water. And then when you were talking about watching this video when you went to your job interview, it highlighted for me the importance of paying attention and of listening to what, like, I guess you can only answer the call if you're willing to listen. And I find it so very almost symbolic that it's like we're here talking about how to help, like, support children so that they can listen better and therefore learn. And it's like, because we're listening right now to that need, that possibility is kind of becoming now a reality, you know, with your efforts. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's what the highlight is for me, is to remember to pay attention so that we can answer the call that is being gifted to us. So thank you very, very much for sharing, Shirley. Finally, I'd love to welcome Emma Sparrow. Emma is a community engagement officer for the Happy program as well. She has spent her whole career submersed into Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander care. She has previously worked in aged care and disability and stepped into a community engagement officer role for the Happy team in early 2021. Emma was in her early 20s when she learned that she had a hearing loss, and she was 26 when her hearing loss was diagnosed as permanent. She has since raised her four children to understand the importance of their ears and looking after them. All of her children have experienced otitis media, causing temporary hearing loss at least 2 times in their childhood. Her journey has made her a passionate Happy member and mother, with the main mission being to inspire others to prevent our next generation from facing the issues we have faced. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you very much, Lou. So today I really also just wanted to take some time and talk about my story and raising my children, especially being hard of hearing myself. It's actually extremely hard to raise kids when you're hard of hearing. For me, I was raised around a family that hearing loss was very consistent in our family. My grandfather was hard of hearing, And my dad, he is a frontline firefighter on radios all the time at work. And he has a big, loud, booming voice, and the radio work affected his hearing. Being on the fire front, he suffers from a significant hearing loss now from yelling at the boys and, you know, just that very hard work. So going through my childhood, I was raised kind of in an environment where it was kind of normal in our family, and no one really understood it. We just lived with it. So going through my education, I really struggled in class. I struggled to learn. And in my teenage years, I was very much that very naughty kid in high school, the very stereotypical thing that everyone hears about with hearing loss in children. When I was 20, I had my first hearing test, and that was when I was told I had a hearing loss. At the time, I had a chronic ear infection while I was pregnant with my daughter. When my daughter was born was when the struggles really started to show for me. It started to get a lot worse after I had my daughter, and there was times through the night where I wouldn't wake up to her crying, and I'd have my partner kicking me in the leg like, it's time to wake up, like baby's up, like you gotta feed her. And I'm like, I know. And then the degree of my hearing loss then further got worse when I had my son. And that was the point I went back, had another hearing test, and they had told me that it was then permanent. Communicating with my children at the best of times can be extremely difficult. If they come running up when I'm cooking dinner and they're calling my name, Mum, Mum, I've hurt myself. Sometimes I don't hear them, and Dad will go to me, oh, Emma, the kids are calling out to you. And I go, oh, yeah, okay, I'll deal with that too. But you just miss things sometimes. And there are times where my language skills are not exactly the best either. And my kids pronunciate words the same way that I do. And so when they really started entering kindergarten and school, and the education system was starting to pick up that they didn't pronounce words very well either, that was the point that I really started to educate myself on my hearing loss. So going through that journey with my children by my side has been very interesting, to say the least, but it's still my story. So I connected with a few mums in my area that were similar to me, and I started to realize how much our hearing losses did affect raising our children. And these mums, they are supportive, and it made me feel extremely happy that I'm not alone, but sad that this happened to all of us. So earlier this year, coming into working for Happy, that was the point that I really got my kids looked at properly. I never really made the connection with, oh, well, I've got a hearing loss, my kids might too. So both of my younger two children out of 4, both had middle ear infection at the time that they were tested, and my son has been ongoing. My son, he has some speech delays because of his hearing loss, and it's been really amazing to have Happy programs supporting my kids to access the care that they need. In regards to the call to country theme today, I will say the way that my call to country is I like to take my family out on country after a very long week where it's quiet. There's no expectation to hear everything, and we just spend time as a family. That was really my story that I wanted to tell today. So thank you for listening. I appreciate everyone being here. And yeah, let's get our babies' ears checked and looked at. That's the biggest thing that I can say.
Thank you so much for sharing, Emma. And I think you highlighted something very important, which is the difference that having a community made to you, in the sense of like finding the similar experiences with this other moms, kind of like, I don't know, you feel a bit less alone in the journey, and be like, oh, I'm not the only person going through this. And then you can like support each other into the journey, and also like by participating in events like this, like just what you said at the end, you can support others that maybe have not gotten to that point yet, where it's like, oh, maybe this is something that I should look into. And that's fascinating, that ripple effect of community and communicating, and storytelling as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We've now heard the 4 stories. So